He stood beside her in the little white church, but his eyes looked past her like she was a stranger. Then he asked the one question that nearly broke her. Who are you? The wind blew soft and warm across the dusty plains as Junia May Hart stood in front of the little church on the edge of Willow Ridge. She wore her mother's old lace dress, tied neatly at the waist. Her boots were clean. Her hands, though rough from ranch work, held her Bible gently, like it was something precious. Her heart beat fast like a frightened horse in a storm. She had waited for this day. She had written letters, prayed long nights, and dared to hope. Running her family's ranch alone was getting harder each year. Cattle had gone missing. Fences broke faster than she could mend them. And last winter her father had passed, leaving her with the land and the worry. So she had taken a step that many women would never take. She sent a letter east asking for a husband. A mail-order groom. She didn't ask for love, not right away. She asked for help. She asked for someone kind. Someone honest. Someone who could hold a hammer, ride a horse, and maybe bow his head in church with her. And one day a letter came back. His name was Silas Merritt and his words were soft and good. He said he had worked with cattle. He said he believed in God. He said he had lost something in life but wanted to start over. Junia thought, so have I. She had read his letter so many times she nearly knew it by heart. And now he was here. Just in time for spring. Just in time to plant hope again. The preacher waited inside the church. A few folks from town sat quietly in the pews. And there stood Silas. But something was wrong. He didn't smile like he had in the picture he sent. His eyes looked lost. He held onto the doorframe as if he didn't know where he was. And when Junia stepped closer to him, she saw a cut on his forehead and dust all over his coat. His hat was in his hand, and his hair was messy as if he had fallen. Are you all right? Junia asked softly, touching his arm. He looked at her slowly, his brow tight, his eyes wide with confusion. I don't know you, he said. Junia's breath caught in her throat. She blinked. Maybe he was joking. Maybe he was nervous. I'm Junia May. You came to marry me. Don't you remember? Silas took a step back. Marry you? His voice was soft and hoarse, like someone who hadn't spoken in a while. I don't remember anything. I don't even know where I am. Inside the church the music started. The preacher was ready. But out here Junia's world was spinning. Silas, she said, her voice shaking, you wrote me letters. We agreed to marry today. You came by train 3 days ago. You said you were coming. He looked down at the dust on his boots. I woke up in the grass by a fence line, hurt. I must have hit my head. I don't remember writing any letters. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I think there's been some mistake. Junia looked into his eyes. He wasn't lying. He looked truly scared. And still, she needed help. Her ranch needed a man. She couldn't do it all alone anymore. Maybe God had brought him here even through the confusion. She whispered a prayer in her heart. Then she said something she never thought she would say. We'll go inside. You can rest after. Let's take the vows. Silas didn't move. You don't have to love me, Junia said. But maybe this is where you're meant to stay. Slowly he nodded. All right. If you believe that's true, I'll trust you. And so they walked into the church together. A groom who didn't remember. A bride who couldn't forget. And the first chapter of a story neither of them saw coming. He didn't hold her hand. He didn't even look at her. And as the preacher read the vows, Junia wondered if she had just married a ghost. The sun hung low in the sky when Junia and Silas stepped out of the little white church. The sky glowed with soft orange light. The wind tugged gently at her dress. Birds chirped in the cottonwoods as if nothing strange had just happened. But everything had changed. They were husband and wife now. And yet, they barely knew each other. Silas didn't smile or touch her hand as they walked down the steps. He tipped his hat politely to the preacher and nodded at the townsfolk who had stayed to witness the vows. But he didn't speak a word, not to her, not to anyone. Junia thanked the preacher, accepted a pie from Mrs. Tilly from the bakery, and forced a smile when young Clara Jo said, He sure is quiet, Miss Junia. But he's mighty handsome. Junia just nodded and led Silas to the wagon. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Silas sat straight, holding the reins like a man trained to ride but unsure where he was going. Junia sat beside him, hands folded in her lap, heart thumping with questions. He looked calm on the outside, but she could feel the storm inside him. He kept glancing at the land, the hills, the windmill in the distance. Looks like good country, he finally said. It is, Junia answered. I built fences before, he said after a long pause. I think I remember that. My hands, they know work. Junia turned her head toward him. That's good. The fences here need mending. There's always something that needs fixing. He nodded. But then his eyes narrowed a little. You're sure I came here to marry you? Yes, she said quietly. You wrote me 6 letters. You said you'd arrive by train from St. Joseph. You signed your name Silas Merritt every time. You rubbed the back of his neck. I don't remember a train. Just waking up near a broken fence. My head hurts sometimes. Like something's trying to come back, but can't. Junia looked ahead. The ranch came into view. The house was plain but strong, with white siding and a red roof her father had built. The barn leaned a little, and one of the shutters had come loose during last month's windstorm. But it was home. I can sleep in the barn if you'd rather, Silas said softly. Junia blinked, surprised. You don't have to. It's your home now too. He glanced at her. I just don't want to be a bother. I can work, earn my keep, till I figure out who I am. You are my husband now, she said, though her voice trembled just a little. We made vows before God. Silas looked away. I hope he heard them better than I did. They reached the house and Junia showed him where to tie up the wagon. She helped him carry in his bag just one, small and worn. Inside it were a comb, a pocket Bible, a torn map, and one old letter he didn't recognize. Junia made supper, simple biscuits, beans and dried apples. He ate slowly, politely, but still said very little. He thanked her, helped wash the dishes, then asked quietly if he could sleep in the front room by the fire. She gave him a pillow and 2 quilts. Then she went to bed alone. That night, Junia lay awake in her room staring at the ceiling. The house creaked like it always had. The wind whispered through the shutters. But now there was a man sleeping just down the hall. A man who didn't know her. A man who didn't remember anything at all. She held her Bible close and whispered a prayer into the quiet. Lord, I don't know what you're doing. But please, don't let me be alone again. In the front room, Silas sat in the rocking chair, wide awake, staring into the fire. He held the letter he didn't remember writing, turning it over and over in his hands. And deep inside him, something stirred. A face. A name. A flash of fire. But it was gone before he could hold on to it. He closed his eyes and for the first time in a long time, he dreamed. She heard him whisper it in his sleep. Mary. And in that one word, Junia's heart cracked like dry earth beneath a summer storm. The days after the wedding passed slow, like thick molasses in winter. Junia and Silas worked side by side, but their words were few. He helped her mend fences, water the livestock and patch the hole in the barn roof. He never complained. Never asked for more than a biscuit or a place to rest his head. But he also never asked about their past, not about the letters, the courtship, or the life they were supposed to be building together. Junia tried to be patient. She tried to believe that time and prayer would bring his memory back. And maybe it would bring something else too, something like love. But that night, everything changed. Junia had been up late boiling water for laundry and scrubbing the kitchen floor. Her hands were raw and her back ached. She was just about to blow out the lamp and go to bed when she heard him in the front room. He was talking in his sleep. She stepped to the doorway, careful not to wake him. Silas lay on the couch under the quilts, his brow furrowed, his hands gripping the edge of the pillow like he was holding on to something that might slip away. No, Mary, don't go. Mary. The name floated out into the room like a ghost. Junia froze. Mary? He said it again, softer this time. Mary? Then he rolled over and went quiet. Junia's throat tightened. Her hands went cold. She stepped back, heart pounding hard in her chest. She hadn't imagined it. He hadn't said Junia. He had said Mary. She climbed into bed, but sleep would not come. Her mind kept spinning like a wheel stuck in the mud. Who was Mary? Was she someone from his past? A sweetheart? A wife? Had he lied? The next morning, Junia rose early and went out to the chicken coop. She worked faster than usual, trying to keep the thoughts away. But they followed her like a shadow. When she returned to the house, Silas was already up, chopping wood out back. Sweat rolled down his face even in the morning air. His shirt clung to him and his movements were strong, steady, but something in his eyes looked tired. Junia brought him a cup of water and stood nearby, waiting for the right moment. I heard you talking in your sleep last night, she said quietly. He paused, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. Oh, you said a name. Her voice trembled. Mary. He turned his head, looked down at the ground and went still for a long time. I don't know who that is, he finally said. The name feels familiar. But I don't know why. Junia swallowed hard. Was she your wife? Silas shook his head. I don't remember a wedding. I don't remember anything clear. Just pieces. Bits that come and go. Like someone else's life. He looked at her, his eyes honest. If I was married before, I tell you, I wouldn't do this to you. Junia searched his face. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. I need to know the truth, she whispered. So do I, he said just as soft. That afternoon she went through his bag again. The small letter she had found earlier was still there, folded neatly with no name on the envelope. She opened it, heart thudding. The handwriting was beautiful, flowing like river water. It began simply, "Dearest, if you do come, I'll be waiting at the willow tree near the bend in the river." But the rest of the page was torn. The name at the bottom, Mary Bell, was the only clue. Not just Mary. Mary Bell. Junia held the letter in her lap for a long time. Who was she? Why had Silas kept this? Why was it with his things, when he had no memory of her? That night, Junia didn't sleep. She sat in the front room after Silas went to bed, holding the letter, praying in the dim light of the lantern. Lord, she whispered, you know every word ever spoken. You know every heartache. Please, tell me if I've made a mistake. Or if this is the path you meant me to walk. Outside, the wind rustled the grass and whispered through the chimney. Inside, Junia waited, and wondered who her husband truly was. She followed the torn letter to the river bend, and found a second set of footprints that didn't belong to her or Silas. The next morning, Junia tucked the letter inside her apron and hitched up the wagon. She told Silas she was heading into town to buy more feed. He nodded and stayed behind to clean the stalls. But she wasn't going to town. Not yet. Her heart tugged her in another direction, down the winding trail that led to the bend in the river. The one the letter had spoken of. If you do come, I'll be waiting at the willow tree near the bend in the river. Junia had lived near Willow Ridge her whole life. She knew that river like she knew her own hands. She knew where it curved, where the willows dipped low, where the water slowed and glimmered like silver in the sun. It took her nearly an hour by wagon, bumping along the path that cut between the tall grasses and the cottonwoods. Her heart thudded louder with each turn. And then she saw it, the willow tree. It stood tall and proud beside the water, its long branches sweeping the ground like a curtain of green. The sun filtered through the leaves, and the breeze carried the sound of birds and moving water. Junia stepped down from the wagon and walked toward it slowly, the letter still clutched in her hand. She didn't know what she expected to find. A message carved in the bark? A scarf caught on a branch? Instead she found footprints. Fresh ones. They were small, woman's shoes most likely. Not from her boots and not Silas's either. They led up to the tree, then back again. Like someone had come, and left. Junia knelt by them, her heart racing. Was it Mary Bell? Had she come here looking for Silas? Had she waited at the willow tree just like the letter promised? The grass was flattened in one place as if someone had stood there for a long time. Watching. Waiting. Junia looked around, suddenly feeling very alone. We're not alone enough. She stood, brushed her apron and called out softly, "Hello?" Only the birds answered. She stayed a while, watching the water and thinking of the woman who had written the letter. A woman who may have loved Silas. A woman who may have lost him. And maybe, a woman who wanted him back. Junia walked back to the wagon, her thoughts heavy. As she turned the reins toward home, something inside her felt different. Not afraid. Not jealous. Just unsure. Whoever Mary Bell was, Junia thought, she still lives in his heart. Even if he doesn't remember her yet. Back at the ranch, Silas had stacked firewood and cleaned the tools. When Junia pulled in, he came to meet her. "You were gone longer than I thought," he said. She nodded. "I stopped by the river. Near the bend." His face changed slightly, like a cloud passing over the sun. "Why there?" Junia hesitated. Then she held out the letter. "This was in your bag. I read it. I'm sorry, but I had to know." He took the paper and stared at it. "I don't remember her," he said after a long while. "I wish I did. I wish I could tell you the truth." "I believe you," Junia said softly. "But someone else remembers you." Her footprints were there. Silas looked up, surprised. Footprints. She was waiting. Maybe still is. He folded the letter and handed it back. "I don't know who she is, Junia, but I'm here. With you. I wake up every morning and work beside you. I eat your food, I sleep under your roof. That's real." Junia nodded, but the words didn't warm her like she hoped they would. Because even if Silas was here in body, part of his heart was still missing. And now, Junia knew that someone else might be searching for the piece he had lost. Junia thought her world had cracked when she heard the name Marybelle, but nothing prepared her for seeing the woman herself step off the train. It was the following Friday when Junia hitched the wagon again, this time truly heading to town. She needed flour, sugar, and lamp oil. She also needed to breathe somewhere that didn't carry the echo of Silas's silence. As she drove, the wind tugged at her bonnet, and the sun warmed her shoulders. But the unease in her heart hadn't melted with the spring frost. Main Street was busy when she arrived. The general store had sacks of grain stacked out front, and kids ran through the dust with ribbons in their hair. Junia made small talk with Mrs. Holloway, bought what she needed, and was just about to head back when she heard the distant whistle of the noon train. She didn't plan to stop. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe fate, drew her to the station. She stood on the edge of the platform watching as the steam engine hissed and slowed. A handful of passengers stepped down, an old man with a satchel, a young boy traveling alone, and then a woman in blue. Junia's breath caught. The lady wore a sky-colored dress trimmed in white lace. Her gloves were spotless, her posture proud. But her eyes scanned the crowd like someone searching for a piece of herself. She held a folded letter in one gloved hand. Junia's feet moved before her mind could stop them. The woman turned at the sound of footsteps. Her eyes landed on Junia, and for a brief second, something flickered between them. A feeling neither could name. "Excuse me," Junia said quietly, "are you looking for someone?" The woman straightened. "Yes, I'm looking for a man. He may have arrived here a few weeks ago. Name's Silas Merritt. Have you seen him?" Junia's stomach twisted. Her fingers tightened around her shopping basket. "Yes," she whispered. He's my husband." The woman's expression didn't change, but her shoulders stiffened. "I see," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I only came because I received this." She lifted the letter slightly. "He wrote it to me a month ago. Said he was headed west. Said he'd explain everything." Junia's heart pounded. "You're Marybelle?" Pause. "Yes." For a long moment they just stood there, two women tied to one man, neither sure how. Junia looked at her closely. Marybelle was beautiful, graceful, everything Junia imagined she might be. And standing there in her plain cotton dress, hands covered in flour from baking that morning, Junia felt suddenly small. "I think you should come with me," Junia said at last. "There's a lot you don't know." Marybelle hesitated. But then she nodded. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Junia drove. Marybelle sat beside her, holding the letter and watching the hills pass by. When they arrived, Silas was in the field, fixing the gate near the corral. He looked up as they approached. And when he saw Marybelle, the hammer slipped from his hand. Junia helped her down from the wagon. Silas stood still, his eyes wide, mouth parting like he wanted to speak but couldn't. Marybelle stepped forward. "Silas." He stared at her. "I've seen your face. I think I know you. But I don't remember your name." "It's me," she said gently. "Marybelle. You promised you'd come back for me." He took a shaky breath. "I don't remember making promises." Marybelle turned to Junia. "What happened to him?" "He was found half dead near my fence," Junia said, her voice steady. "He didn't know his own name. I needed a husband to keep the ranch from the banker. He wore a ring, he had letters. I thought he was the man who answered mine." Silas looked between them. "I don't remember writing to either of you." Junia's voice cracked. "But you married me." Silas rubbed his temples. "I don't know what's real." Marybelle whispered, "You are." Silas took a step back. "I need time," he said. "I need to figure out who I really am. Please." He walked away slowly, leaving the two women behind. Junia turned to Marybelle, her heart raw. "What are we supposed to do now?" Marybelle shook her head. "I wish I knew." She had placed that wedding ring on his finger with trembling hands, but now even the band seemed to belong to someone else. That evening, the house was quiet in a way Junia had never known. Marybelle sat at the small kitchen table, sipping tea, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Junia moved slowly around the stove, setting out bowls and biscuits, though her stomach had no interest in food. Silas didn't come in. The sun dipped low over the horizon, and the shadows stretched long across the fields. Every time a floorboard creaked or a bird flapped outside, Junia looked toward the door. But it stayed shut. Marybelle finally broke the silence. "You love him," she said softly, not accusing, just naming the truth. Junia didn't answer right away. She leaned on the edge of the table and stared into her tea. "I didn't plan to," she said. I married a stranger to save my ranch. But every day I watched him work. Watched him try so hard even though he didn't remember who he was. I started to hope he could become someone new. Someone who might love me back. Mary Bell nodded. He wrote to me for a year before he vanished. Told me he'd marry me. That he just needed time to sort something with his father. She paused. His father is Elijah Merritt. The banker. Junia blinked. The banker? Mary Bell gave a small nod. Silas never wanted his money. He was ashamed of it. Said he wanted to start clean, build something with his own hands. Junia sat down slowly, the world spinning slightly. All this time, Silas had been the son of the very man who once tried to take her land. The man who nearly crushed her with debts and deadlines. He was running, Junia whispered. Yes, Mary Bell said. But not from me. He said he loved me. That he'd come back. Then he disappeared. Junia stared at her wedding ring. It sat crooked on her finger, loose in the cold. She turned it slowly and suddenly remembered something. The day I found him, she said, his wedding ring was on his right hand, not his left. I thought it was strange, but I didn't question it. Mary Bell looked up, her brows drawing together. Silas always wore his ring on the left, she said. He told me he wanted it close to his heart. They were both quiet, the truth rising between them. He didn't marry me, Junia whispered. Not before the accident. He married you. That ring, it was yours. Mary Bell's eyes shone with unshed tears. I think he forgot you, Junia said, but your love never left him. It was still in his hand even when his mind let it go. The door opened just as the oil lamp began to flicker. Silas stepped in, dusty and tired, his shirt damp with sweat. He looked between the two women, guilt plain on his face. I need to tell you both something, he said quietly. He held out a small object in his hand. It was a key. I went into town this afternoon to the bank. I talked to my father. Junia's mouth dropped open. You remember? No, he said, voice rough. Not everything. But I saw my name on a paper. I saw his face, and I knew he was mine. He said I ran away because I didn't want the life he planned for me. He offered me land and money. I refused it. He looked at Mary Bell. I loved you. I believe that now. And I think I ran because I wanted to earn you, not buy you. Then he turned to Junia. But you gave me a second chance. You gave me a name, a home, even when I was no one. Junia's throat burned. I don't know who I was, Silas said. But I know who I want to be. Neither woman spoke. He looked down at the key in his hand. This is to a small cabin just past the ridge. I need to go there. Alone. I need to pray, to think, and let God tell me who I am, not the past, not even you two. Just him. He set the key on the table. I'll return when I know where my heart belongs. And with that, he walked back into the darkness, leaving Junia and Mary Bell behind, two hearts waiting for a man caught between two lives. Sometimes the answers we're looking for are already waiting, pressed between pages, hidden by pain and written in trembling hands. The days passed slowly after Silas left. Junia rose each morning before the sun and fed the chickens, mucked the stalls and swept the porch. She kept busy the way a woman does when her heart is full of worry but her hands must keep moving. Mary Bell stayed in the spare room helping where she could. She was quiet, always writing in her notebook, sometimes walking the edge of the property line like she was searching for something. Maybe peace or maybe the courage to walk away. Neither of them spoke much about Silas. The nights were harder. Junia would lie awake and wonder what he was doing. If he'd eaten. If he was remembering. If he'd come back for her or not at all. One cold afternoon, Junia was dusting the shelf in the sitting room when her hand brushed the old family Bible. It was thick and heavy, bound in cracked leather. Her mother had written the births and deaths of family inside it. Junia opened it, hoping maybe to find comfort in a verse. Instead, something slipped out and landed on the rug. A folded piece of paper. Yellowed at the edges. Her breath caught. It was a letter. She bent down, picked it up and opened it with trembling fingers. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was Silas's. To the woman I hope will forgive me someday. I don't know who I am anymore. But I know I love her. I wake up every day hoping for a name, a memory, anything. But all I find is her face. The way she brings me coffee before the sun comes up. The way she hums hymns while she hangs the wash. She doesn't know it, but I watch her when she's not looking. And I think, maybe God didn't take my memory. Maybe he gave me mercy. I don't remember the vows I may have spoken before. But I would marry her again. I would kneel in the dust and ask her for forever, right there beside the hens. If you find this, Junia, Know that my past may be lost, but my heart found home in you. Junia's knees gave way and she sat on the floor, the letter pressed to her chest. He had written this before he left, before he talked to the banker, before Maribel stepped off that train. He had chosen her, at least once. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't know what it all meant yet, didn't know what God had planned. But she knew this letter wasn't meant to be found by accident. It was grace, just enough to keep her waiting. That evening, Junia handed the letter to Maribel without a word. Maribel read it slowly, her lips pressed tight, her eyes unreadable. When she finished, she set it down gently. I think, Maribel said softly, that God is not trying to take from us. I think he is trying to teach us to let go. Junia nodded. But I still want him to come back. Maribel looked out the window. Then let's wait. Not with bitterness. Not with fear. Just with open hearts. And so they did. 2 women. 1 porch. 1 setting sun. Waiting. He left to find himself, but what he found instead was a dusty chapel, a broken hymn, and the truth that finally set him free. The cabin was small and plain. Just a table, a cot, and a stove that creaked when the wind blew through the cracks. Silas had chopped wood, fixed the door hinge, and even tried to whittle. Anything to stop the noise in his head. But nothing helped. Each night, he stared at the ring that used to be on his hand. He didn't wear it anymore. It lay on the windowsill, catching the morning sun. Some days he thought it whispered things to him. Promises. Regrets. Confusion. He read the Bible by lamplight. Sometimes he prayed. Mostly he wept. It was on the 7th day that he climbed the ridge behind the cabin. The land rose gently, the grass gold and tall, and at the top stood something strange. A little white church, its steeple crooked and roof sagging. Curious, Silas pushed open the gate. The church had been abandoned long ago. Dust covered the pews. Ivy curled around the windows. But when he stepped inside, something stirred in his chest. He walked slowly down the aisle, past empty rows and forgotten prayers, until he reached the front. There was a cross still hanging. Crooked. Faded. But still there. Silas dropped to his knees. God, he whispered, I don't know who I am. I've got 2 women who care for me, one from my past, one from the now. And I don't know which life is mine anymore. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to lie. But I don't know how to be the man either of them deserves. The wind whistled through the broken window, but no voice answered. Then Silas looked down and noticed something. A hymnal lay open beneath the pulpit. Faded pages. 1 line circled in pencil, barely readable. I once was lost but now am found, was blind but now I see. He swallowed hard. That hymn, he knew that hymn. He closed his eyes and began to hum. And as the tune left his lips, something flooded his mind. A memory. He was in a church, not this one. A smaller one. Holding a woman's hand. Vows spoken. A kiss. Tears. Maribel. Then, another flash. A different woman. Dark curls, strong hands, laughter by a barn door, her voice calling his name. Him handing her coffee. Him watching her while pretending to read. Junia. Both memories. Both real. He gripped the edge of the pew. He had loved them both, but only one had walked beside him through his brokenness. Only one had known him without a name and still chosen him. That's when he knew. The next morning, Silas packed the small bag he had brought and left the cabin. But he didn't head back to the ranch. He rode into town, straight to the telegraph office. I need to send a message, he told the clerk. To who? The man asked. Silas looked down, then slowly smiled. To someone I owe the truth to. The sun was just slipping behind the hills when the knock came, soft, careful, like a man asking for forgiveness before he dared ask for love. Junia was setting the table for supper when the knock came. She froze, wooden spoon in hand. Maribel looked up from her sewing, their eyes meeting across the quiet room. Another knock. Slow. Gentle. Junia's heart raced. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped toward the door. Her knees were weak and every step felt like a mile. She opened it slowly. And there he was. Silas. Dust on his coat. Hair longer than when he left. But his eyes, those eyes, were clear for the first time. Hi, he said softly. Junia swallowed. Hello. Maribel stood now, her sewing forgotten, watching from across the room. Silas looked between them. I remember, he said, voice low. Not everything. But enough. Junia's breath caught. I remember my name. I remember Maribel. Our wedding. The day I left to stand on my own 2 feet. I remember letters. Promises. Dreams. He turned to Maribel. I loved you. I truly did. But I didn't keep my word. I lost myself trying to earn something I already had. Maribel's eyes shimmered, but she didn't interrupt. Silas turned to Junia next. And then I met you. With no memory, no past. You fed me, clothed me, let me sleep near your fire. You married me to save your home, and in doing that, you saved me. He took a deep breath. I was two men. One who ran from his name. One who lived with no name at all. But now I know who I want to be. Junia's voice was barely a whisper. And who is that? He stepped closer. A man who stays. A man who chooses not what was promised, but what was proven. Silas reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded paper. A letter, he said. I wrote it at the cabin. I left a copy at the church. This one is for you, Maribel. She stepped forward slowly, took it from his hand and held it to her chest. Thank you, she said. I'm sorry, he said. You deserved more than a letter. You deserved forever. And I hope someday you'll find it, with someone who remembers everything, not just pieces. Maribel gave him a quiet, sad smile. I think I already did, she said. But I also think God gives us people for a season. Maybe our season just ended. Silas turned back to Junia, who hadn't moved from the doorway. I love you, he said. Junia blinked. Even now. After all this. Especially now, he said. You saw me at my worst. And still, you stayed. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She reached for his hand. And this time when their fingers touched, there was no doubt. No fear. Just warmth. Later that night, after Maribel packed her bags and hugged Junia tight, she climbed into the wagon and waved as she disappeared into the moonlight, heading toward a fresh start, her heart heavy but hopeful. Inside the house, Silas took Junia's hand again. I want to marry you, he said quietly. She looked up. You already did. He smiled. Then let's do it again. But this time for love. And for the first time in weeks, Junia laughed. Sometimes, love isn't about remembering the past. It's about choosing the future again and again with eyes wide open and hearts fully surrendered. The little white church on the hill had been cleaned and decorated with wildflowers, pine boughs, and the gentle love of neighbors who showed up when they heard Junia and Silas were marrying again. This time it wasn't for paperwork. It wasn't to save land. It wasn't out of duty or confusion. It was for love. Silas stood at the front, dressed in a simple vest, his hair combed back, a nervous smile on his face. His hand rested gently on his Bible, the same one Junia had found the letter in. And Junia? She walked down the aisle in a soft blue dress, her hair braided with ribbon, her eyes never leaving his. Her heart beat steady now. Not fast with fear, not aching with loss. Just steady with peace. When she reached him, Silas took her hands in his. I forgot everything, he said softly for all to hear. But somehow even then I found you. Junia blinked back tears. You were the answer to a prayer I didn't know I prayed. The pastor smiled and began the vows. They were simple. Holy. Eternal. I do, they both whispered. And this time, every soul in that room believed it with them. Outside the church, Maribel stood by a tree watching with a quiet smile. She didn't cry this time. She didn't ache. She simply prayed. Lord, thank you for the love I had. And thank you for the one that's still coming. Then she turned and walked down the hill toward her own new beginning. Later that night, under a sky full of stars, Junia and Silas danced in the grass behind the barn. No music but the crickets and the wind. No guests left, just them and the fireflies. He kissed her forehead and pulled her close. I remember what matters now, he whispered. She smiled into his chest. What's that? You. And the God who brought me home. And as they swayed beneath the heavens, they knew, the past was gone, but the future had never been brighter. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more emotional Western love stories full of faith, hope, and second chances. Comment below, what would you do if the one you loved forgot everything, but remembered your heart?